Aston Villa have been linked to Lyon striker Moussa Dembele. Reports suggest Villa could sign him for as little as £3 million. To find out more about the French player, I'm joined by Alex Collings. He's a Lyon fan and has contributed to Scouted Football. Alex, it's great to have you on. Firstly, what kind of a player would Villa be signing if they did get Dembele?
First of all, I think something that stands out is he's quite a physical presence. He can be used as a focal point. And beyond that, I kind of always viewed him as this sort of jack of all trades, master of none sort of forward. So he can receive ball to feet. He can play. He can receive ball to feet. He's got decent hold up play. I wouldn't say he's elite in that regard. I wouldn't say he's even someone comparable to what Alex Lacazette can do in the team. But what he does offer is he's also very good running in behind. He can run the channels well. He's a good aerial threat. He's got good sort of creativity in terms of his movements inside the box. So he's generally, and he's a good finisher. He's generally a forward that I feel has a lot of areas where he's like 8 out of 10, but there's not really that one area where you'd say he's like a 9 or 10 out of 10 forward. Having said that, he does go through really good periods of form. I think one thing that is maybe slightly underrated is his technique. He's really good at setting himself with the first touch. Sometimes not very quick at shifting his feet to execute afterwards, but you can always kind of see he has a picture of what he wants to do as the ball comes, and he's got the technique to kind of set himself nicely for it. So I think he's definitely someone who could play, centrally up front in an Emery team for sure.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. He's been at Lyon for a couple of seasons now, and he was very highly rated when he was at Celtic. So with his time at Lyon, how would you sum it up, really?
Stop-start. I think when he first came into the team, when Genesio was still there, the coach at the time, now at Rennes, he wasn't really getting the game time that I felt he deserved in his first season. He was kind of getting subbed on a lot, not starting as much as he should, but it really impressing when he did get his chances. And that's something that I think has been Moussa Dembele's thing. Kind of struggles maybe to hold down starting spots, but when he's put into the team, he does impress. And that's kind of carried through. I remember his second season being a bit disappointing. I still think he ended with a solid goal tally around about 15, 16 in the league. But there could have been more, and kind of that's when maybe my own estimations on him dropped a little bit, just because he doesn't really have those standout qualities that you look for in a forward, something that the right system can really exploit and make use of, right? He's sort of, like I said, 8 out of 10 in a lot of different areas. Then I think he went off to Atleti. Part of that was him wanting to leave because he felt he wasn't getting enough starting time. I think I do agree with him. He's also kind of come to Lyon at a time where we've been badly managed, to be fair, whether it's at the executive level and the coaching level. So I think there was some frustration there. He came back last season. He had a really good season after not initially getting too much game time. Then he forced himself into the team. I think he ended the season scoring in all of our 7 last games or something like that. So again, it's something where he can really hit really good form. And I think he's a very useful player to have. I mean, I don't think he is someone who I would look at being like a Champions League level forward at a Premier League club, right? Someone who could play for Tottenham or Arsenal or something like that as a starter. And I think that's what his initial sort of promise was when he was a player at Celtic. But I think just that level below, he's very, very useful. And he just offers a lot. I think he'll offer a lot in the Premier League, where having those focal point forwards who have that physicality to be able to manage and just, be a presence while also having that little bit of extra technical ability and quality to make things happen. I think the Premier League suits him very well. And I think he'd be a great addition for Villa from that perspective.
Okay. That is interesting to hear, because Aston Villa obviously have just sold Danny Ings to West Ham for 15 million. And our other centre forwards now really are Ollie Watkins and Leon Bailey. And I think something you would probably argue is that there's not a great deal of physicality in those two players. There's a lot of running, and the skill, particularly with, the skill probably comes with Bailey and the running with Watkins. But do you think Dembele offers, if he did come to Villa, would offer that physicality that maybe those two players don't necessarily have. And do you think that with that physicality, he can be a very good link-up player with the midfield in the final third?
I think so. I think when you build a nice system around him, he like I said earlier, he has that sort of picture of what he wants to do when the ball's coming to him. And I think while maybe he can't stop a ball dead and sort of kind of hold up for a bit and play, well, he can, but not to a very high level. He is very good at those first time touches off onto runners coming onto him. And I think you guys obviously have a lot of those players, I would say, who can kind of get the ball into the forward. I think he also works well when he has really dynamic wingers surrounding him, which he hasn't really had at Lyon recently. We don't have those like explosive wingers to feed him and create that bit more space that he probably will benefit a lot from. So I do think that that should benefit him. I thought Watkins was quite a physical presence. Maybe I'm wrong and should watch more. But definitely in the middle, he's someone you can kind of play a ball into and believe he has that ability to make something happen with it, rather than just getting shoot up and spat out.
Yeah, like Watkins is quite a physical player, particularly when he's running and hustling and moving. But I think of him more as a striker who's running all the time and stretching defenses. And I think sometimes Villa will send a ball forward, and none of the strikers are great. Sometimes they're just making it stick, and that little layoff, it's not always consistent. So whether perhaps Dembele, the reason they're interested in him is because he potentially could offer that. But last season he scored 21 league goals, which is a great return. What sort of went right last season?
I think he had a really good run of form, I have to say. But I think also we have a lot of really creative players. Lyon, we always kind of have. We kind of lack those wingers that I think could help create space for him, where he benefits maybe with more runs off the box. But we do have a lot of creative players to kind of feed those balls in behind for him. And I think we just had a more of an attacking setup under Bosch than we had previously, maybe at the cost of being weak on the other side at defending our own goal. But yeah, I think he's a very good player. I wouldn't say I think 20 goals in Ligue 1 is something that he's capable of doing, and I think he's capable of hitting like 13 plus NPGs for Villa or whoever in the Premier League. I think he's a very good player, and on a good season, nearing 18 or so. So I think it is just what went right, I guess, is basically we just played into his strengths a bit more than we had, I think, ever before. Yeah, kind of because the team was faltering a bit. So we had to kind of just force him as a focal point and then use all of our creators to kind of try get the ball into him.
Okay. And this season, obviously, he's only got 2 league goals. So obviously, what's happened there?
Alex Lacazette's come back. And it's been part of a wider project as well. It's been an issue at Lyon where what the club and the fans feel is that there's been like this lack of leadership that's led to like the malaise at the club. And that's part of why we brought back Tolisso and Alex Lacazette to kind of put that like professionalism back in, and basically lead the club back through that. And Lacazette's obviously been made captain. So it's sort of I would say some factors that Dembele didn't really have much say in. And I think he did start the season off with a 1 or 2 small niggling injuries that kind of just slowed his start into the season. Personally, I mean, Lacazette's done really well, much better than I would have expected coming back, especially as an Arsenal fan who was watching him last season. I've just found that he's the third highest scoring Frenchman in the top 5 leagues apparently,
right? Which
is quite impressive. But I do actually think if I had to choose, I think one of the problems with Lyon is we don't have that running power with Lacazette as much as he's good at link-up play. So I think Dembele is the better player. I would be starting him despite how well Lacazette's done. So for me, I think there are more issues to do with just the leadership and the other factors, the intangibles, if you want, that Lacazette does bring to the squad.
And just a couple more questions. How high do you think Dembele's ceiling could be? Do you think there's much improvement he could make?
I think he's close to his ceiling. I could be wrong, but I don't see somewhere where he'll explode or tap into things. Having said that, I think he's already quite a good player who's kind of become almost unfairly forgotten about.
Yeah.
I think where I kind of see him is I don't see him as someone that you want if you're in the Premier League, in a Champions League sort of level. But maybe if you're pushing to be in the Europa League, he's the perfect striker. And I think he is someone in the right system that can get you about 16 non-penalty goals in the league a season, which is and also at a consistent enough rate around that number. So yeah. I think he'd be a fantastic signing for a number of Premier League teams, and even a backup option for the real top clubs like the Chelseas and the Arsenals and the whatnots. Yeah,
that was literally what I was going to ask you. I was going to say, it's very difficult to crystal ball, how anybody will ever do. It's a dangerous game because it can backfire very easily. But so you do think he could be a success in the Premier League, and more specifically, I guess, at Unai Emery's Aston Villa.
I think he could work out quite well for Emery, especially with the sort of players that you have. If you have runners coming in, explosive wingers, and someone like Watkins, I can think creating that little bit more space for him to be a little bit more effective getting those balls in and taking those shots off. I think it could work out quite well. So yeah, I think he's a very solid option. And I also do think he's one of those guys who, because he's so rounded as a player, jack of all trades, master of none sort, he does kind of fit different styles and different ways of using him.
Okay.
Broadly, yeah.
Okay, well, it's definitely a move to keep an eye on. I know his contract's almost up as well.
So it'd be and he's not signing anyone. So
right. So
yeah,
it'd be interesting to know kind of how many Premier League teams or sides from other leagues are interested in him as well. But Alex, it's been absolutely great to have you on. Thank you so much for your very informed take on Moussa Dembele. Before you go, can we just find out, for those who don't know, where we can find you online and where we can find your work more generally?
Oh, sure. It's been a pleasure. You can find me at AlexFRCO on Twitter. I'm usually tweeting about Lyon or Arsenal there, among other young players and whatnots. I've done some work for Scouted that you can probably find. And I have a podcast of my own. If there's any half Villa, half Arsenal fans listening, then you can check me out. I think it's in my bio. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I'll strongly recommend that. And Alex, once again, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks, Frankie.